They asked me to forgive and forget. What they didn't realize is they were asking me to lose myself, too. I didn't argue. I just walked away. And that changed everything. 3 weeks ago, I walked into my parents' house, expecting a quiet Sunday afternoon. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. There they were, Sarah, my ex-wife, sitting on the couch with my brother, Ethan. Their legs brushed together like they had every right to be there, side by side. Her hand was resting casually on his knee, like it was just another normal moment. My mom was busy in the kitchen, humming to herself as she poured tea. My dad sat on his usual chair, reading the newspaper, completely unfazed. No one even looked up when I walked in. Not at first. My mom noticed me standing in the doorway, though, and her voice cut through the air. "Oh, honey, you're here. Come join us. We've been waiting for you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My feet felt rooted to the floor. My throat went dry. I don't know how long I stood there, but it was long enough for my brother to look at me, fidgeting with a nervous little half-smile. "We were going to tell you," Ethan said, but his words hung in the air, useless. What could he say that would make this moment less surreal? My hands were shaking. I turned and walked back out, not saying a word. The front door slammed behind me, and I didn't stop until I was sitting in my truck, hands still gripped tight on the steering wheel. The world outside felt distant. I couldn't breathe. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. Sarah and Ethan, my wife and my brother, had been together all along. I'd walked into that house expecting nothing more than a casual family visit, but I walked right into the reality of betrayal. I didn't have the words for it. I still don't. The thing is, I didn't find out about the affair the way most people do. There were no secret texts or lipstick on collars or accidental phone calls left in a voicemail inbox. It was more like everything around me had been quietly shifting, and I'd been too blind or too stupid to see it. Sarah had left me a year ago. I knew that much. It had been her decision, and I had agreed to it, thinking I was doing the right thing. I thought we'd just grown apart. Life had happened. We'd changed, and I wasn't the man she wanted anymore. I had tried to respect that, try to keep things civil. Even after she moved out, we kept things friendly enough to not make it worse. But looking back, that's where I made my mistake. I believed her when she said she wanted to be on her own. She told me she needed space to grow, to figure out who she was without the pressure of our marriage. She never once mentioned another man. But there it was, the truth, sitting in front of me now, raw and unfiltered. It had been my brother all along. Ethan. I don't know when it started, but I remember the exact moment it all came crashing down. A month ago, my old friend Tom called me out of nowhere. "Man, you need to know something," he said. His voice was thick with hesitation, like he wasn't sure whether or not to tell me. "I saw Sarah and Ethan together at the farmer's market. They're, pretty much a couple now." I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't know how to respond. "Are you sure?" I asked, but I already knew the answer. "Yeah, I saw them holding hands, talking, laughing like they were in love. She's with him now, man." There was nothing to say after that. For the next week, I tried to ignore it, try to keep living my life. But the moment I saw them together in my parents' house, laughing, sharing space like nothing had changed, it hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just some careless fling. This was something serious. It took me a couple of days to get up the courage to confront Ethan, to ask him what the hell was going on. But when I did, he didn't seem surprised. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't even look guilty. Instead, he looked like someone who'd been waiting for me to catch up. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Ethan said, sitting across from me at the diner. His voice cracked a little. He was trying, I think, to make it sound like an accident. It just did. I couldn't believe it. While I was married to her. Yeah. He looked down at his coffee, fiddling with the spoon. "It wasn't planned. We just talked. A lot. After you two split. And it turned into something." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him everything he was saying sounded like a poor excuse, like nothing more than a rationalization. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done. But I didn't. Instead, I just said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He didn't look me in the eye. I didn't want to lose you. As my brother, he might as well have slapped me. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. I got up, paid for my coffee, and walked out of the diner, leaving him there in that booth. I thought that would be the hardest conversation, but it wasn't. The hardest part was when my parents got involved. A few days later, my mom called, asking me to come over for dinner. "Please, just come. We want to talk." I should have known better. I should have said no, but I didn't. I walked in like I was still part of that family. But when I saw them sitting there, Sarah and Ethan, on the couch like they belonged there, like they hadn't done the worst thing possible, it felt like someone had ripped the floor out from under me. "We want you to understand," my dad said quietly, not looking up from his newspaper. It's time to move forward. My mother smiled like she was doing me a favor. We just want to talk. Ethan was there too, of course. We love each other, he said. His voice was calm, but there was no regret in his eyes. I couldn't even breathe. I stood up and left, my heart pounding, my mind racing. It's funny, I always thought I'd know what to do when something like this happened. When betrayal stared me in the face, I thought I'd have some perfect, righteous response. But now I realize that sometimes, no matter how much you prepare, life doesn't give you neat answers. There's no final showdown. No epic, cinematic confrontation. I've been walking through this fog ever since, trying to figure out where to go from here. But one thing's for sure, I won't be going back to that house. Not for Sunday dinner, not for anything. I can't change what happened. I can't make Ethan or Sarah feel bad enough to fix things. But I'm starting to understand that I don't need them to. This pain, this weird, heavy weight in my chest, it'll fade. It always does. The only question is how long it takes before I start breathing again. I spent the next few days in a daze, floating between disbelief and anger, but mostly just a sense of being untethered. I knew I needed to make a choice about how to deal with all of this, but every time I tried to grasp the reality of it, it slipped through my fingers. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was everything that had come before, everything that had been so carefully constructed to look like a family, like love, when it was all just a fragile illusion. I stayed away from my parents for a while. It was hard to face them after everything they had said, after the way they tried to push me into accepting this new reality without so much as a question. They never apologized for Sarah and Ethan, never acknowledged the pain it caused me. To them, this was just a shift in the family dynamic. A shift that, apparently, they were okay with. And then came the call. It was my mother, of course. "I think we need to talk," she said, her voice almost pleading, as though she expected me to come running like I always had. "Your father and I cut her off. I don't want to talk about this right now. You can't just shut us out," she said, her tone shifting to that familiar maternal mix of concern and frustration. "You're letting this thing with Ethan destroy you." The word stung, more than I expected. The whole world wasn't just falling apart. It was my fault for letting it bother me. She didn't even seem to understand the depth of it. "Mom, you don't get it," I said, my voice tight. "I'm not the one who did this. I'm not the one who ruined everything." She sighed on the other end. "We're all just trying to move on. Please, don't make this harder than it already is." "Move on." I laughed bitterly. "You're all so goddamn eager to move on, aren't you? Like this was just some small inconvenience." "Stop," she said, her voice quiet. "Please, come over. We'll talk." I didn't go. Instead, I spent the rest of the day walking around town, aimlessly. When you've been betrayed by the people closest to you, it's hard to look at anything the same way. The familiar places suddenly felt like a foreign land. I passed the diner where I used to grab coffee with Ethan, where he and Sarah used to laugh behind my back. I saw a couple walking hand in hand down the street, and for the first time, I felt the real weight of loneliness. That night, I sat at home, flipping through old photos. I had an album of pictures from our wedding, photos of Sarah and me on our honeymoon in the mountains, our first apartment together, our first Christmas. I looked at those faces, those moments, and felt like they belonged to someone else entirely. How could they be the same people who'd betrayed me so completely? I wasn't just mourning Sarah anymore. I was mourning the version of myself who had trusted, who had believed in everything. But I wasn't ready to deal with that yet. The next week, I ran into Ethan. It was at the hardware store of all places. I'd gone in to pick up some paint, planning to tackle the back porch. I didn't expect to see him. He was standing near the power tools section, looking at drills like he had any right to shop there. Like everything was normal. I felt my heart skip, and then I hardened every muscle in my body, making myself as cold as possible. When he saw me, his expression shifted just a little, a flicker of discomfort, of guilt. But he didn't back away. Instead, he walked over. "Hey," he said, his voice quiet, like we were the only two people in the world. I couldn't do this. Not like this. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of him, but I didn't. "Is there something you want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Look, I know I fucked up," he said. "I'm sorry. I really am." "You didn't just fuck up, Ethan. You fucked up everything." He winced. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear. I never wanted any of this to happen." "I wasn't buying it. You wanted it more than you think. You wanted it the moment you kissed her behind my back. You wanted it when you kept lying to my face. I never wanted to lie to you. I didn't know what to do." I laughed again, this time with no humor in it. "No, you knew exactly what to do. You knew exactly how to manipulate this whole situation, how to make it seem like I was the problem." Ethan took a step back, eyes lowering. "I never meant for it to go this far. I could feel the anger building again, but I stopped myself. This wasn't about him anymore. It wasn't even about Sarah. It was about me. I took a breath and steadied myself before speaking. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if I want to, but I'm done trying to make sense of it. I don't need your apology. I just need you to stay out of my life. His face twisted and hurt, and for a moment, I almost felt bad. But then I remembered. He hadn't just betrayed me. He betrayed us both. I walked away, leaving him standing there looking lost. After that, things were quieter. I didn't hear from my parents again for a while. I didn't want to. Every attempt to force some kind of reconciliation felt like another betrayal. But what I hadn't realized, what I'd failed to see, was that the healing process didn't start with anyone else. It started with me. Over the next few weeks, I found my own peace. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, quiet. I spent my days working on small projects around the house, painting the porch, cleaning out old boxes in the attic. Each task gave me a little more control, a little more clarity. I started to understand that I didn't need anyone's permission to move on. Not my parents, not Ethan, not Sarah. I had been living my life for them, trying to make everyone else happy. But now, for the first time in a long time, I was living for myself. I didn't need to win anything back from anyone. I didn't need closure. I had peace, and that was enough. It's funny how, when you let go of something you thought you couldn't live without, the world somehow starts to open up. Not in a dramatic way. There's no sudden, earth-shattering moment of clarity. Instead, it's like one day you wake up and you realize you're breathing a little easier, that the weight on your chest is lifted just enough to make everything seem possible again. It had been almost 2 months since I had walked out of that house, since I found out about Sarah and Ethan. 2 months since I'd stopped trying to get answers, stopped waiting for some kind of apology or acknowledgement that might never come. The first few weeks were rough. There were days when I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I'd catch myself replaying every moment, every word, every look I had missed before the truth came crashing in. But as time went on, the sting started to fade. I wasn't healed yet, but I wasn't drowning either. I had spent years trying to keep everything perfect, trying to make my family proud, trying to keep the peace, trying to make my relationships work. But at some point, I'd lost myself in that. Somewhere along the way, I had let others dictate my happiness. I had sacrificed my own needs to keep everyone else comfortable. It wasn't just Sarah or Ethan that had taken something from me. I had given them pieces of myself, pieces that I never got back. But now, I was learning to take them back. Slowly, quietly. One afternoon, I decided to stop hiding from the town. I went to the coffee shop, something I hadn't done in weeks. The place where Sarah and I had spent so many lazy mornings together. I figured it would feel like walking into a ghost town, but strangely, it didn't. The barista, a young woman I'd never really noticed before, smiled at me like I was just another regular. I took my coffee and sat by the window, watching the world go by. The sun was shining, and the air felt crisp. I wasn't thinking about Sarah, or Ethan, or anything that had happened. I was just there, present. That's when I realized how much I'd been missing. Not just the people, but the quiet moments. The moments when nothing was expected of me. When I could just breathe and exist without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. The following week, I ran into Tom again. He was at the market, pushing a cart filled with vegetables. He spotted me from across the aisle and waved. I smiled back, walking over to him. "Hey," he said, "I was wondering when you'd be back out in the world." "Trying to get back in the swing of things," I replied. I looked at the cucumbers in his cart, then back at him. "I'm doing better, I think." He nodded, giving me a knowing look. "Yeah, you look like it. You look lighter." "I am," I said, and I meant it. It wasn't the kind of change that felt big and obvious to everyone else, but it was huge for me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't clinging to the past, trying to reshape it into something that fit my idea of what it should have been. I had accepted the truth for what it was. Sarah had moved on. Ethan had moved on. And I was moving on, too. Tom paused, his gaze softening. "You know, I was thinking the other day, you've got a lot of good stuff ahead of you. Don't let this whole mess stop you." I didn't need to hear those words to know them. But for some reason, hearing them from Tom felt like one more little nudge, one more tiny reminder that I was still capable of more than just surviving. I was capable of living. A few weeks later, I ran into my parents again. They showed up at my door unannounced, as they always did when they decided it was time to talk. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I certainly wasn't expecting my mom to hug me the moment I opened the door. She held me tight, like she was trying to press all of her regrets and worries into my chest, like she could somehow make it all right again. But the thing was, I didn't need her to make it right. I had made it right for myself already. "I'm sorry," she said softly, pulling back to look at me. "For everything. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't angry anymore, but there was no going back to the way things were. The past couldn't be erased, and we didn't have to pretend it didn't happen. What mattered now was what we chose to do next. I'm okay, Mom, I said. Really? I'm okay. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I know you are. I can see it. My dad, who had been standing silently behind her, finally spoke up. We just want you to know that we love you, and we're sorry for not standing by you when you needed us. I nodded, accepting their words. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, or the quiet way they had tried to push me into forgiving the unforgivable. But it was a start, and that was enough. The real shift happened when I decided to get back into dating. I wasn't ready to jump into anything serious, but I figured I could at least try to see what it felt like to be with someone who didn't come with the baggage of betrayal. It wasn't about replacing Sarah or proving anything to anyone. It was about seeing myself as capable of happiness again. I signed up for a dating app, half-jokingly, and found myself surprised by how many genuinely interesting people there were. One evening, I met Rachel for drinks. She was easy to talk to, with a calm energy that didn't overwhelm me. She didn't try to fix me, didn't offer sympathy, just listened and talked about her own life, her own experiences. It was refreshing. It felt normal. In a way, it felt like I was getting back to myself. We talked for hours, just enjoying the company, until the bartender called last call. As I walked out, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe not the kind of hope that was tied to some grand promise or a fairy tale ending, but the kind of hope that came from just trusting that things could get better with time. I didn't need anyone's approval to be happy. I didn't need Sarah or Ethan or anyone else to validate my worth. I had learned the hard way that I was enough, and that I always had been. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making anyone feel bad. It was about rebuilding a life that was mine and mine alone. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Kindly subscribe and like for more raw and unfiltered X stories. See you on the next one.